Attention teachers, students, military, and seniors. At Goodwill, all teachers, students, and active and retired military get 10% off regularly priced merchandise every day. For our seniors age 60 and older, receive 20% off all regular priced merchandise on Wednesdays and 10% off every other day. So when you shop at Goodwill, not only do you get great finds at a discount, you also help someone find a job.
Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning. You're listening to Blog Talk Radio, Art of Living Well, and this is Fridays with Faith. Well, I'm looking out today. I know it's still really foggy out. Looks kind of like it's chilly willy. Feels a little cool here in the house today. But we are broadcasting live outside of Nashville, Tennessee. And I always like to kind of start and give the call-in number. That is 1-805-292-0349. And let me repeat that, 1-805-292-0349. I always like to give that because we would love for our listeners to call in, ask some questions or make some comments. So if you'd like to be added to the show, just press 1 and we'll just add you in as we have a chance. So this morning, I'm excited about the show today, and but before we get started on our special guest, I always like to kind of thank our guests from last week, and we were so appreciative of Mr. Gene Smith. He joined us from St. Augustine, Florida, and it was so great having him on the show. If you missed it, I encourage you to go to our link and listen to the archived version. Our shows are always available on archive about 5 minutes after we go off the show live, and that way it's really just available at your convenience. Whatever is a good time for you to listen in. And so I hope you'll go back and listen to Gene. He is actually working on his Footprints of God project, and he's going to be starting his Kickstarter campaign very shortly. We had kind of thought it was going to be last Friday, but it's been delayed just a little. But it will give other people an opportunity to be able to be a part of this film, this very important film that he's in the process of putting together. And so the film is called Footprints of God, and it's actually kind of trying to show in the film about finding God in science. And a lot of times we think, there's science and then there's God, but he's bringing it all together in this film, and I'm so happy he's doing that, actually. So if you want to go to his website, you can kind of look around there, and that is www.footprints-of-god.com. So there's just little dashes between Footprints and of God. But go to his website, look around, and then also he now has a Facebook page. So if you would go and like it, what's so great about that is, you'll keep updated on what all's going on, where he is in the process, and how you might be able to be a part of it. So I love that. And if you didn't get all of that down, you can always go to my Fridays with Faith Facebook page, and I have it all there, and you can just kind of scroll down and see it. Hit the link, and it'll take you to his website, and it'll take you over to his Facebook page. So I sure hope you'll do that, and I hope that you will also follow what he's up to, because it's important, and I think it would mean a lot to be able to be a part of that. So thank you again, Gene Smith, for being on our show last week, and for being a dear friend. And I always like to support whatever you're up to, because I know it's always good stuff. And I'm just looking forward to following you myself in all that you're doing in your new project. So that brings us to now and today. And I'm very excited to welcome back my dear, beautiful friend, Teri Pugh as our guest today. We've had Teri on our show several times, and it's always great to have her on. And like she said, it's, Faith, it's kind of like me and you're just sitting having coffee or tea and having a conversation, and we're inviting other people to kind of join us. So I love the way you put that. And so I'm going to say welcome to the show today, Teri.
Good morning, Faith. It's wonderful to be with you in the morning and have conversations. I always love getting together and chatting with you. So yes, it's nice to invite the public in with us this time.
Well, that's great. And I know that, we always have, it seems very timely and very important and kind of poignant discussions when we're talking. And when I asked you kind of what would be a good direction to go today, I loved this about trading in our grief and our regrets. And you want to kind of go ahead and start right in there? I just love the way you put that.
Yeah, when we were talking about this topic of the day, I had shared that I feel a good topic, especially for around the time of holiday season, is kind of checking it before we wreck it, so to speak. We have an opportunity to trade in our grief and our resentment, anger, any of that baggage stuff that we're intentionally or otherwise hanging on to have a clearer mindset and set our intentions for going from this day forward, not just waiting for the new year, but, in a direction that will bring us to a healthier, happier state of being. So that's kind of where my whole purpose, I feel, is wrapped up in a great big hug with that grief and helping people work through that to see that they can surface on the other side of that and they're wiser and have more clarity, and it's just a great place.
Well, and I like kind of the thought, first thing I thought about a trade-in was, we think a lot about trading our vehicles in, and it was kind of like thinking, oh, it's just kind of that simple. We can just kind of say, hey, it's our choice here, and we can kind of say, oh, well, wow, I don't have to feel this way. I don't have to feel this regret. I can trade that for something else. And, typically when we go to trade a vehicle, it's not often that anyone trades down. They're always trading up to something better, So I kind of thought of it like that too. It's like, hey, I don't want to come. I want to elevate. I want to be in a better place than I was in. And so thinking about just being able to trade that, it makes it seem like I guess it doesn't seem as, number one, impossible or like problematic or like, oh gosh, this is going to take a whole lot of effort and time and energy or anything. It's basically like a decision. And it's like, oh, so we get this new perspective. We're looking at it in this new way. And of course, you and I both know that changes everything.
Absolutely. And not unlike trading in a car. There's time for contemplation, time for questioning yourself, time for going around in your head and negotiating, whether or not you want to do it or you don't want to do it. And that also presents itself when we're processing or choosing to process through our grief or our anger or any of that, because a lot of times it becomes so woven into the fibers of who we have become as adults that we lose sight of the fact that we're actually these beautiful beings and we are intended to be full of light and laughter and joy. But, time kind of gets in there and events get in there and bringing gets in there, and the next thing we know, we're kind of, we've taken this beautiful, abundance, and we've kind of funneled it down into one little package of woe is me, kind of, and not always just the woe is me. Sometimes things happen in life that are, zingers right out of left field, but we do and can make those choices to reclaim that healthier part of ourselves and to move forward. And that negotiating does happen, and that's part of the process.
Well, and one thing that I keep, trying to kind of remind myself, because, a lot of times we'll get it and then we forget it. And then it comes back up for us again. We're like, oh, man, yeah, I kind of forgot that, I can make that choice or do it that way, because it'll be maybe something that is similar, but it doesn't seem like it. At the root, it's similar, but it doesn't seem like it in the situation. And so we forget, oh, yeah, we can make that decision, and it's kind of a reminder that we can when we face something like that. And I know with me, sometimes I'll go back and I'll review a certain situation and where it led me, because of it. And it's like, wow, I wouldn't have necessarily chosen that, of course, to get the lesson I got out of it, but it presented itself, and if I can see it in that way, then I am able to actually gain from it, learn from it, see the value in it. And I think when that happens, then we quit, or maybe earlier, instead of us resisting it or rebelling against it or resenting it, whatever that is, then we start thinking, our first thought is maybe not first, but second would be like, oh, well, I know there's a bigger picture here. I probably can't see it right now, but if I just trust, I know there is a bigger picture here, then we can kind of allow things a little more, knowing and trusting and believing that there is going to be something good come from it.
Right, and Faith, that is an excellent point. And the flip side of that is sometimes, especially when we start from, for younger adults, I should say, maybe not people that are, 40, 50, and older, we sometimes are able to tap into that wisdom and kind of harness that and carry that along with us, and that's where we get that whole, if I'd only known then what I know now kind of thing. But for younger people and the younger, children, grade school, high school, a lot of times they're in the middle of all their stuff, and they don't, like if they lose a parent or anything like that, they don't really have the life skills or the life, that we have already led to know that actually things can get better, that they're not just kind of stuck in that. And that's where I think if we start with teaching and sharing the mindfulness of our intentions, what we put out, we really do get back. It might not be in that moment, but it's definitely, good stuff does come back to us if that's what we put out. If we put out, victimization stuff, then unfortunately we get kind of stuck in that mindset also.
Well, and I think what you're saying too is the more history we have, which comes with age, the more history we have, whatever the history is, then we have more of a reference point. Whereas when we're younger, we don't see it, we don't have as many life experiences. So if we have the understanding that things are a bigger picture, then we can see them more connected, where when we are younger, we don't have as much history. We see them as just this isolated event that has nothing to do with anything before it or after it, but it just kind of sits there by itself. And so
exactly.
I think that's what... Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was going to say, and those events sometimes can seem monumentally unfair,
Right.
And that's where I think that it's so important that kids have support, have support of healthy individuals that are really present. I saw a post on Facebook the other day that said, it was something along the lines of, you can speak 1,000 words to someone and they'll never really hear you, or you can say nothing at all and they totally connect. And I think that goes back to that intentional and that being mindful of really connecting with people, because when we connect with other people, we can't help but authentically allow our compassion and our kindness to come out, because we're not designed to be enablers or, you know, jaded or anything of that nature. We're designed as loving, caring beings. You know, we just have to sometimes shake it up a little bit so that we remember that, you know.
Right. Well, I think that's why, and I'm not sure where I heard it or read it, but I think that's why they said, oh, who was telling me, if I was in some meeting, I can't remember, I'm always somewhere, but there was somebody that was making the point that, she sat someplace, and I can't remember how many people went by, but only she smiled at everyone, but only 2 of them smiled back. And actually, one of them was the one behind the one that was the first one that smiled back because of some kind of interaction that took place. And, you know, so that wasn't even just random. But they were saying how, when you were saying about connecting, I think that when we make eye contact with someone, that usually can really change things. Because then I'm saying if we're really making contact with them, then we've seen a glimpse of them, you know, so we can't just be totally indifferent.
Right.
You know, and I think that's the reason why a lot of times, you know, if we pull up at a stop sign and there's somebody there with a contributor and, you know, you're kind of on the phone or whatever, you know, if you make eye contact with them, usually you're going to end up pulling the money out and give it to them, you know, because you've actually kind of connected. If not, you know, most of us, we try to stay a little back, a little disconnected so that we don't have to be involved or we don't have to, you know, kind of put ourselves out there in some way to acknowledge, oh, you know, that could be me, you know, except for the grace of God, you know, that could be me.
Well, you know, it's like when we choose, and that's really a conscious decision, when we choose to not engage other people or to, as you said, look the other way when we very well could look at them and offer something that costs nothing, a smile, you know,
right.
a compliment to someone, you know, anything of that nature. When we're choosing to disengage and disconnect from people, that is a clear sign of what we actually choose for our own well-being as well. Because choosing to disconnect from our fellow mankind, there's no way that we can be connected within ourselves. Because if you're truly connected with your source and with, you know, your beautiful self itself, then you want to share that with the world. You want to pay it forward in a kinder, gentler kind of way, even if it's a nonverbal compliment. You know, just a smile or a wave at someone can make all the difference in the world, you know, and that's just setting an intention.
Right. Well, I heard a couple of people, and I won't say who it was, but that were talking, and one of them said, you know, well, what if you tried just looking at everything with softer eyes?
Oh, I love that.
And I did too, and I thought, wow, that's it, you know. And then because you have to look at yourself with softer eyes first before you can really look at anyone else with them. It all starts here. And so I thought, wow, just looking in the mirror with softer eyes, you know, can start that whole chain reaction of it. And then if I'm looking at myself with softer eyes, then maybe I'm not as sensitive or overly sensitive or, you know, harsh or judgmental of my own self in my own mirror, looking at my own self, and therefore I can have softer eyes with the next person.
Absolutely. You know, I don't know if you saw my post on my Transcending Turbulence Facebook page yesterday, but it was about something along those very lines, about receiving compliments, giving and receiving compliments, and how so many of us, and I'm guilty of it myself. I mean, you know, when someone approaches you and they give you a compliment, you know, we're very quick in this society to say, you know, someone says, wow, you have, you know, a beautiful smile, and it's like, oh, whatever, stop it, you know. And we're very quick to shoot those compliments down because many folks are not comfortable receiving them. You know, I can't tell you how many times I've said to someone, oh, I love that blouse, I love the, you know, that jacket, and they'll say, oh gosh, I got this thing, this thing is so old. And all that's required is simply saying thank you, you know.
I know I heard someplace where was talking about that, and they said a really nice response is to say thank you, or so nice of you to notice, you know, and that's an acknowledgement, because then you've accepted it. You've accepted it too. Oh, how nice of you to notice, because, you know, you believe it within your own self. And it was funny because I was at NHC last night, and I had gone through the dining room. I was sitting with a little lady helping her eat, and there was a lady sitting at the table beside me, and she was you know, older than me, but she had you know, silver in her hair. It was kind of a mixture. It was short. It was real curly, and it was thick, and it was just beautiful. I mean, it just struck me as soon as I saw her. And I didn't know her, of course, but I just, as I went by, I said, I just love your hair. It's just so beautiful. And she was just taken back because, of course, she didn't know me from Adam. But it felt so good for me to tell her, because I'd already had it in my mind. And so all I did was just share it, you know, out loud and verbally to her. And so, you know, and I thought, you know, anytime I see someone that allows their hair to be natural and it looks good, then I like to say something to them, because I know it takes some courage to do it in today's society. And so and a lot of times it's funny, because if I'll go shopping or something and see someone, I'll see them kind of turn around and look at me, and then they've caught me kind of turn around looking at them, because I'm looking at their hair, because I'm kind of trying to decide, you know, am I going to say something to them? You know, because it's almost like you stand out, you know, in a store, you know, you're like the two people in the whole store or something. But anyway, it's just kind of funny. But I just wanted to, you know, to tell her that last night. It felt so good for me just to say it, and then I just went right on out the door. And, you know, and you kind of feel really great about it when, you know there's no agenda behind it. I don't know her. I'm not trying to get anything. There's no manipulation. It's just saying, hey, you know, you look great, and somebody to recognize that and say it to you.
Right. Well, and the plus side of that, Faith, is, you know, knowingly or not, you started that ripple effect where now she's sitting there, and you know, you don't know where she is, you know, mindset. You don't know where she was emotionally that day, but you've extended a kind gesture to her, and she received it, and that very likely could have changed a lot for her. You know, it's the same as when someone gives us a compliment, and simply saying thank you acknowledges, it validates their gesture. When we shoot them down and say, no, that's not true, or, you know, stop it, you need glasses, or whatever,
right.
You know, we're basically telling them, you know, their compliment is not valid, it's full of crap, and we don't believe them, you know, and
right.
it's just not necessary, because, you know, shooting down someone else's gesture just because we are insecure in our own skin or our own emotional state is something that I think that probably lots of us need to look at and you know, be a little more mindful of as to why we're in those places, and proactive steps to find our way out of that place. You know, because we send those messages out to people. We teach people how to treat us, you know.
Exactly. Exactly. And so, anyway, I just think that, you know, like, as you were saying, that was another way to connect with someone else, that I was in there with no other reason than just because I already had thought it in my mind. So why not let her know? She would never know if I didn't tell her. You know, because she didn't know me, so she would never know. I was sitting there thinking about how darling her hair was, and see, when I see someone like that, I see them as a model for me, because I'm going to get there in my age, and so I love to see someone that I go, wow, see, there's nothing wrong with aging. You know, it's beautiful. It's just all in, again, our perception and how we want to look at it. But to me, she was beautiful, and that's what, you know. Anyway, that's how I saw it, and it was just it's easy to do, you know, and it's easy when when you feel full of life yourself, you feel full of gratitude, you feel full of appreciation. You've traded in your regrets. You know, you've traded all of that in, and so what you're left with is these feelings that then, you know, just kind of spill over. It's not that,
right.
you know, you're trying, you just can't hold them back.
Right. Well, you know, and things, life, we're going to have hiccups in life. You know, a lot of people will ask me with the grief recovery work that I do. So when I do this process, I'm all good, right? Like, nothing else will bother me. And I'm like, well, I would be doing a huge disservice to yourself and myself both if I said yes. Because, you know, we have roadblocks and hiccups, and we have events happen that, you know, like I said, come out of left field and can be monumentally unfair to us at times. But it's all in how we perceive it. You know, if we do the work and we're mindful about our actions and our words and the way that we internalize things and the way that we consciously or otherwise treat people and allow people to treat us, then we're left with the next time something comes out of the blue, or not even out of the blue, if we have a loved one that's ill and they pass away, you know, there's nothing that's going to take away that pain. There's nothing that anyone can say that's going to take away the angst, that, you know, where you are in that moment. But knowing that you have the skill set and the compassion within yourself, you're able to ride that out in a kinder, gentler way, and then it doesn't become baggage for you. You don't continually have to feel bad about it or make excuses for it. You just simply accept it for what it was. You find gratitude or an appreciation for the person, place, or event, and then you hold that in your heart, you know, and you don't have to drag it like a weight. You really cherish that, and then you move forward in life, you know.
Well, I agree, and I went to some grief share classes, and, you know, my husband passed away February the 19th, 2007, so I'm going on, you know, 7 years. It doesn't seem possible, but the thing that I'm so appreciative of is, and I guess it was from our upbringing, but, you know, we just always kind of, whatever it was, it's what it was. You know, there wasn't a whole lot of you know, not of, I guess, what you'd say medicating or doing something that you didn't kind of see it. So, you know, I really feel like that I felt what I felt. I didn't try to not feel it. And I think that that's the key. And, you know, there were plenty of times that, you know, I didn't feel like going out anywhere, and so I didn't. And there were times that I thought I could, and I tried, and I did, but then maybe I, you know, started crying and had to come home, or, you know, whatever. But I didn't try to, I guess in a way, I didn't try to be stronger than I felt. I didn't try to put on like, you know, I could handle something if I couldn't. But I did it all, you know, kind of my holistic way, which of course I didn't want to medicate that. I wanted to feel what I felt, because it is painful, and it's going to be extremely painful, and it just depends on when you're going to feel the pain. Are you going to feel it at that time, or are you going to try to put it off, and then it's going to just pop right back up, you know, at some other time if you don't face it and you don't go through it. So there's a certain amount of courage that I believe that it takes to see it for all of it, because within that is our own self-reflection. It's our own opportunity to grow, evolve, learn, see some things that we wish we'd have done differently. You were talking about regret, and regrets are good if we don't live there. You know, if we just stay there and look and see, and what can we learn from this? And I'll never forget, I was telling my sister the other day, but I said, you know, one of the things that helped me, I think the most, or I really would probably have to say the most, was when I was talking to her, and I was telling her about all these different regrets that I had about my husband and I's relationship and how I wished I'd have done this and wished I hadn't have done that and wished we could have done this, that, and the other. And I remember she just looked at me and she said, you know, Faith, if you had been the one that died, he would be saying those exact same things to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew in my heart that was exactly true because it wasn't just me, it wasn't him, it was both of us that struggled and had, you know, major struggles in trying to actually figure things out about our relationship and stuff. And so it was so true, but her saying that, then it was, you know, I was able to kind of just, you know, take a sigh, you know, I just let out a sigh of relief, and it was like, yeah, I don't have to keep beating myself up over this. It's not doing any good, and it's not,
right.
and it's not really honest. You know, it's not even honest for me to take all that on. It wasn't, but when she said that made total sense to me, and I was like, that's exactly what it was. That's exactly what that is exactly what would have happened.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and that's where the healing started.
Right.
That's where the healing started. Because I think, don't you think, Teri, if we stay just in the regret and the guilt and shame and all of that phase, we never get to move on past.
Exactly. When I work with my clients, I tell them, you know, we don't put waders on and troll around in this stuff. Now, we do go there and we try to acknowledge, you know, whatever the event, person, whatever, you know, that causes the angst within us or the pain and the anger, the regret. But we don't take up a permanent residency in that, because when it already resides in, you know, in the heart and in the mind. When things are not processed and they, you know, you said something when you were talking with your sister that I say often, and I really, it resonates in my heart. I think that when we don't address losses or pain or regret, when they surface, I feel like when they surface for us, that's really God's way of saying, okay, pay attention to this. But what we do is we stuff it. We stuff it with food, with bad relationships, with alcohol, with work, with whatever we can do because we don't want to deal with it. And it will continue. Those are small little things that happen over time, and every time we bury it and we refuse to look at it, we're telling ourselves that we're not worthy of being joyful and happy, and we're also telling, you know, sending a message out that we're kind of okay with being stuck there. You know, we're kind of okay with that. And what happens is we're just prolonging the inevitable because it's going to come. And it may be a lifetime of small, a mixture of large and small losses and regret and things of that nature. And then one day somebody pulls out and hits the bumper of your car, knocks your bumper off, and you have a nervous breakdown. And the reason is because you have just, all of these things have rushed back at you as just one more thing, you know, and we don't want to let ourselves get there, you know.
Well, I really, really believe that, and I think that one thing that I noticed too, that there were times I couldn't go to funerals, you know, and sometimes there's some I can't go to. And so I just don't, and I don't really make an apology for it. I feel like that what this has given me has been more grace and understanding for other people, so I don't put as many expectations on them either. Like, well, I can't believe so-and-so didn't do so-and-so, or why didn't they do this or that or the other? And I've just learned that, you know, I go when I can, and when I feel like I'm supposed to, but if I'm not, I don't force myself to go on because I just try to listen to myself more about all of it and not try to put that, sometimes those social expectations on something, you know, I may just send a little quiet note, you know, in the mail. I'm lifting prayers for sure, or I'm doing something, but sometimes it doesn't always involve that for me, and I think part of that is a learning to listen and say, you know, what would be best for me also in this situation, you know, so that, you know, that you're guarding kind of and protecting your own self, your own health, your, you know, your personhood as well. Teri, I just want to give the call-in number one more time. That is 1-805-292-0349. And again, 1-805-292-0349. I usually like to do that around halfway through the show just so that in case someone's come in and after the show started and doesn't have the number, that is the call-in number. If listeners would like to call in and ask a question or make a comment, just get in on the conversation or whatever, you're welcome to call us. So go ahead, Teri. I was just following up about, you know, just kind of putting a protection around, you know, kind of because you're not the same person. Usually, I don't know of anyone that could say that they were really anywhere close to the same person that they were after going through an extreme loss as they were before, whatever that extreme loss is. And so, you know, you're kind of, you know, finding your way again as to who is this new person because you kind of got to find your new normal. Don't you agree?
I do agree. You know, and going back to what you said about not giving in to that feeling of obligation to attend things that are grief infused. I think that when we are going through something ourselves, it's overload, you know, and it's not just, there's a difference in showing someone their compassion and their respect, and like you said, sending a note or calling them and reaching out in that way. But our society seems to set it up so that we have this obligation. And what unfortunately happens a lot of times is when we're in the middle of our own stuff, or we have heaps and heaps of stuff that we've never processed, we then submerge ourselves into another pool of grief, and it just gets all confused and all, you know, we end up taking on other people's energy and all of that, and it really just makes the matter, it's more of a struggle for us to, you know, to try to work our way back through, because all the work that you do to kind of get you, you know, to a healthier place where your heart feels a little more complete and mended, you know, and then we submerge ourselves back in there again. You know, again, I am speaking in terms of like when someone has had and what I call a recent loss can be anywhere from, you know, yesterday to 7, 8, 9 years ago. And for some people, a recent loss is 20 years ago if they've not addressed it, you know?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about what happens after we make our trade-in.
It's all good.
Ta-da!
It was. Problem solved. I mean, you know, from this day forward, no more problems. No, I'd like to say that. You know, but as I said earlier, there are hiccups that happen. Once we are mindful that we're going to trade in, so to speak, process through, work on all of that stuff that we've been carrying around with us, we do become softer, we become more aware, and then, as I said earlier, when things present themselves, we have tools to process through. But it is a daily, it's basically retraining our thoughts. You know, Mary Mannon Morris has this great quote that we live by design or default, and I love that because it is so true. In every decision, every conversation, every thought that we think is through design or default. We either choose the path that we lead or that we live our life in, or we just do nothing, and by not choosing, we're choosing. And we live our life by default, by the old paradigms, by the old limiting beliefs, by the constrictions that we have around love, love, any type of relationship, money, success. And so it's, trading in all that mess and going for something that is better serving our highest good is really what I feel is the only option.
Mhm. Well, and how does that, like when there's steps, that we have when we go to a class to learn how to process through grief or, anger management or all of those. So what are some things that you kind of, like if there was like a 1, 2, 3, or 4, 5 list or whatever of things that you suggest when you're talking to your clients maybe about what to do to move into that trading this for that kind of thing and moving into that higher elevation of thoughts and feelings and energy?
The first thing is having a willingness. The first thing is really asking yourself, are you ready to do that? Are you ready to take those steps to move in that direction? Because some people are and some people aren't, and that's not a right or a wrong. We get where we get when we're ready to be there, and, and not before. So when I work with people in grief recovery, we do a lot of reflection, and we do a lot of intention work where, it's scary to think about letting go of stuff, because sometimes we have this conception in our mind that if we let go of it, we can never revisit it, or if we let go of it, we're shutting that door and we're walking away forever. But as with the loss of your husband, when you work through that grief and that pain, you're left actually with a peace. It's a process, but you're day by day you find a little more of a peace, a little more of content, a little more of joy, and then you're able to be emotionally stable with things that come up, even memories of those loved ones or that time in your life, and there's not an emotional charge to it. So it's
right.
It's not like a dagger to your heart every time you hear it, or if it's anger or a forgiveness issue that you have when that person's name comes up, or you think about something that was done to you that seems unfair, your first initial thought is not your heart palpitating and, and all of a sudden you're in defense mode. You're just not emotionally charged to it. So
right.
The first step is a willingness to go there. The second step is a willingness to resolve and to dissolve that armor that we layer ourselves with year after year after year, and that's the process, but just being mindful and, looking in the mirror and saying, you know what, I'm worth it. I mean, my life wasn't designed to be, woe is me or to be filled or riddled with pain. It was designed to be happy and, and to bring that to myself and to others. So, and we do a lot of letter writing and a lot of, when I do workshops, I don't like to call it homework because I never liked homework when I was in school myself, so I call it reflection work, and that's really what it is. And intentional work, where we are now, how we got there, and where we intend to be. How do we want our future to look,
Mhm. Well, I was thinking when you said that about homework, it's kind of heart work.
Exactly. I actually say that a lot to people. I'll say, I really appreciate, you doing this heart work. And I've had people go, you mean like homework? And I'm like, no, I mean like heart work, because that's exactly You're agreeing to be vulnerable sometimes for the first time in your life, especially if it's something that goes back to childhood. You know,
Right.
I won't go on a tangent there, but I mean, you know, there's a lot of things that happen to us in childhood that when we are vulnerable, and it teaches us to shut down and put our heart, you know, on guard and lock it away. And we don't bring that inner child, and we don't bring that heart along with us into our adult life. So therefore, we're not fully connected with who we truly are because we're not all there, you know?
Well, it's just, you know, it's just amazing how I feel like that, speaking of connection that we talked about earlier, but just how many people that I have been connected to through my process of grief, and how fortunate I feel all the people that I have met and been involved in, and, you know, even kind of ministered with. And I feel so blessed about that. You know, I think about you and the work you're doing. I think about, you know, Karen Renee Robb that I had on the show that's doing this frame drum ministry, and her music, and, you know, volunteering at a live hospice. I think about us and our Twilight Brigade training and all the people that were there and how amazing all of them are and what they're out doing. I think about Jill Colucci and this new CD that she's coming out, you know, called Heal a Heart, and it's amazing, amazing music.
Well, yeah, you can just interject real quick. That Heal My Heart song, amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing.
Oh, absolutely. Every one of them are. And, I mean, they are. They're just amazing. I was talking to her about how she's got this one song that's going to be on the CD, and it's called How Beautiful. And I just want to read the lyrics real quick. Jill Colucci wrote it, and Janice Stanfield. And it says, I've seen you struggle, I've seen you stumble and get back up again. I've seen you worry, and I've seen the courage that shines in you, my friend. You inspire me, and I can't help but see how beautiful, how beautiful, how beautiful you are. How beautiful, how beautiful, how beautiful you are. When I'm losing hope at the end of my rope, I find strength in your eyes. Because you've walked alone on the darkest of roads, and your spirit still shines. You inspire me to live courageously. How beautiful, how beautiful, how beautiful you are. Oh, how beautiful, how beautiful, how beautiful you are. And I thought that applies to all of us, you know, to every one of us. Every one of us has struggled and stumbled, you know, male, female, young, old, you know, whatever. And I just absolutely, I cannot wait for this CD to come out, because I know it's going to be, you know, it's going to be something used in companion with, say, a workshop that you're doing, you know, with so many things, because it speaks to people about healing their heart. And I'm just so appreciative of all of you all and what all you're all doing. You know, we've all been blessed to just, you know, be here in Nashville and know so many neat people that are, you know, excuse me, just kind of on that same road of compassion.
Well, I am setting an intention that I would love to in the spring, in the spring or the summer. And actually, this has just been a thought in my head, but it continues to be a thought in my head. So I know that this is what I like to call a download that I'm getting of doing a healing day, and that would encompass a day of people coming together and working on grief, a day of, you know, like Jill and other people being there, Jana, other people being there with their music and their stories, and just a wonderful day that people can come together and share, and not so much doom and gloom, because it wouldn't be a huge day of processing grief, but it would be a day of recognizing and appreciating, you know, where we are, how far we've come, and just how bright the future actually can be. You know, if we choose, if we set the intention to do that, and setting an intention to have a happier, healthier life is in no way saying that we don't love, or, you know, we don't miss, or, you know, whatever was in our past, or that, you know, that things that happened are okay. It just says that we're reclaiming us. We're reclaiming us, you know, and that's, I'm not sure when that will happen. I just know that it keeps coming to me, and so I've got to reach out to those gals and, you know, check schedules and kind of see where everybody is with that. And I fully believe that once a date is set, then everyone who is supposed to be there will be there, and it will be divine order. So I don't question that at all. But just to throw that out there to you.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I totally agree. And there's all of this stuff swirling in me, and I don't know exactly how it's all coming out, but it's just beautiful to see it all. It's all, like you said, in divine order, and there's things that, you know, sometimes have to happen before the next step can happen, and you know, it's just so interesting to be a part and watch and see and be and receive the downloads, and then you know, give those at the appropriate time, and et cetera. So I just love that you're on that page, and you know, you've been doing all this for years, and I'd like for us to also give your website address and your I want you to do it, and your Facebook page and all of that for people to know how to contact you.
Okay, well, the Facebook page is just Transcending Turbulence, or you can look me up, Teri Pugh, and there's a link to my Transcending Turbulence there. And then my website is newly designed, and I absolutely love it, and that is www.transcendingturbulence.com, and it's all together. One word, Transcending Turbulence. And on that, if you'll go on there and sign up emails, or you'll get links and updates on workshops and things of that nature, courses, workshops, and just daily tidbits. I'm fixing to unroll a blog so that that'll kind of feed into, you know, the social media thing, because everybody is socially, or, you know, driven by social media today. So just another way to kind of allow people not to be mindful to disconnect, but, you know, they can't disconnect if I'm right there in their ear. So I think that's a wonderful thing.
Right, absolutely. And I'm going to go check out your new website, too, because I don't know that I've been there since you've made your changes. Yeah. And I definitely want to be up on that. Do you have any workshop coming up before the end of the year?
I actually do have one that is forming right now with Pineal Ridge. The date, I think the date is still tentative, but it's going to be a workshop based around grief, based around a lot of what we talked about today, the grief and the letting it go, setting the intention to move into the new year. And in that workshop, we'll be doing what I do with several of my workshops and retreats, which is a reflections of life and laughter. And basically what that is it's a moment, a segment of time set aside where we actually are able to share about a time or a loved one that is no longer here with us. And that can mean in the physical realm, or it can mean someone that you're estranged from, because, you know, loss is loss. And sometimes we have, you know, people that we lose, but they don't really go anywhere. There's just distance between us. And that is a time that, especially going into a new year, we can bring an intention of releasing any sadness or pain or anger that is surrounding that person or event, and move forward into taking steps into the new year. And that will be held at Peniel Ridge, and I believe it's going to be a full day and a half a day session. And if you go to penielridge.org, they will have information on that. And also, they have a Facebook page. So I think when Laura gets all that stuff firmed up, they'll be sending that out. And that information will also be listed on my website and on my Facebook page.
Teri?
Yes, ma'am?
Sorry, I was on mute and didn't realize it. But let's also post that on our Fridays with Faith Facebook page, so that people, since they went there to find out about the show today, we can also have it there so that it'll be easy for them. And because Peniel Ridge, that's spelled P-E-N-U-E-L. Is that right, Peniel?
Yes,
okay. And so we'll have that there. And also, it's so funny because, as the listeners know, I usually don't mention anything at all about what I do. I don't know why exactly, but it just, I don't know, I just like for my guests to pretty much have the whole show. But I would like to just mention that I will be involved in an essential oil training called Essential Oils for a Healthy Practice. It's going to be Saturday, November the 9th, from 9 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon, and it will be in Dover, Tennessee, at the Lovin Family Chiropractic Center. I have the information on my well, I don't think I have it on my Fridays with Faith, but I will. But I do have had it on my Tender Touch Therapies page and my Faith Fairhope page. But we will be, this is geared for nurses, chiropractors, acupuncturists, physical therapists, massage therapists, anyone that has kind of a healing practice. I am in the process of getting it approved for continuing ed hours for the Massage Therapy Board. It is already approved from the Holistic Nurses Association, and it's really already approved through the NCB TMB thing with another entity, but not with us teaching it. So we just kind of got to go through some of the hoops to get that done. But I'm very excited about it. It's actually, I've been trained to be an instructor for this class, but I haven't taught it myself yet. And so Yolanda Heath, which is an LPN, and she's also a nationally certified clinical aromatherapist through the Institute of Spiritual Healing and Aromatherapy that I am certified through, will be actually the official instructor for this class, and I will just be kind of helping and watching how it's done and all of that, so I'm just not thrown out in the middle with no experience of actually seeing how to time and everything a 6-hour class. So, but I'm very excited about it because this is launching me into more of my being an instructor, and I love that with the passion that I have for my Young Living essential oils. And so anyway, I will be doing that, and I just wanted to kind of put that out there. I've also been invited to teach a class in St. Augustine, or no, I think it's Fort Lauderdale, actually. But anyway, it's Florida. That's what I'm excited about because it's going to be in January or February. So I'm excited about that. And so I do want it out there that if there are people that would like to have a class taught, there's several that I have been instructed to teach with my certification. One is Essential Oils for Cancer Care, Essential Oils for the Massage Professional, Essential Oils for a Healthy Practice, besides just kind of an intro class as well. So anyway, just want to put that out there for the listeners, and you kind of got all the different ways that you can get in touch with Teri and I. So we would love to hear from you. We didn't end up having anyone call in today, Teri, but I'm not surprised. Most people are at work and in the middle of their work day, so it's probably not an easy time to be able to call in. But I'd like for you to just kind of wrap up and tell us anything else that you would like to before we go off air.
Well, you know, I don't know really where to leave it. We've covered so much. I guess what I would say is just, you know, for people to look at themselves and look within themselves and take a moment to kind of reflect on if they're at a place where they like in life or if they feel that they want to be somewhere else. And when they do that, you know, gently look at the things around that circumstance and see if they're hanging on to any, you know, what I'll call hitchhikers, you know, emotional hitchhikers that kind of hijack our heart and our minds. And, you know, and if they recognize that, then, you know, take proactive steps to, you know, make that change, make those intentional changes so that they can be the, you know, the whole happy, healthy person that they are intended to be. And take that wisdom with them, you know, because wisdom comes with all of those losses and pains and all of that, all of the life experiences. They're either become baggage or they become these incredible lessons full of wisdom for us. And that's the key, is finding the wisdom in there and holding on to that.
Right. And then taking that and sharing it with someone else in usually a similar situation where you can have an understanding that someone else that hasn't been there just wants to but just can't have it, you know, at the same level. So, well, I just really appreciate you being on the show today, Teri. It's always easy and and the time flies and it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's been an hour. It feels like it's been maybe 10 minutes. So I just appreciate so much you being on, and I look forward to us, you know, being able to kind of use our ministry together in the future, probably in other ways that we have no idea, sitting here right now, what all is kind of coming together and swirling around and is going to happen. But I just feel like with this many of us and having the trainings and the different things that we have, it just seems like a natural that it's all going to come together in some, you know, pretty amazing ways.
Yeah, well, see, I don't believe in consequences, and I think that, you know, we are put on one another's paths at the perfect and right time for the perfect and right reason, and you know, and this, we have a wonderful holistic healing community here. I mean, Nashville is like a mecca of healing, and you know, and that's growing. It's kind of a little silent movement right now, but it's growing, and I know so many people in, you know, in that arena. So I'm honored to be in the same circle with you and, you know, with Jill and Jenna, and I mean, I could be like an Oscar thing here and give a whole speech to everyone that I'm so grateful for, but I'll spare everyone that. But I'm just honored and I'm humbled, and you know, I look forward to whatever, you know, tomorrow brings, whatever this afternoon brings. You know, it's just being in the moment and you know, being grateful.
Absolutely. I agree totally. Well, thank you again for being on the show. We hope everyone has a beautiful, beautiful weekend. And I'm thinking that I may get down to Piney River.
Oh yeah, you need to.
Did you want to say anything about Piney River?
Sure, I'll give a Piney River plug. Tomorrow in Bon Aqua is the Piney River Freedom Folk and Soul Fest. And I know that's a mouthful, but it will so be worth it. There's going to be vendors. There's going to be a great lineup of music. There's a Piney River Freedom Folk and Soul Fest site on Facebook. And if you go to my Transcending Turbulence page, I'll plug it there. Again, I've got it on my personal page. But there's a wonderful day of all sorts of great healing music. There's going to be Native American flutists there. There's going to be soulful music. There's just, I can't even begin to tell you all the great stuff. Food, bring a blanket, bring a chair. There's going to be a wonderful lantern lighting ceremony at the end of the evening, and I believe they've added another junction to that, which is going to be a fire walking thing. I don't know that much about that. That happens at the end of the evening, but just a great day on the river, and it's supposed to be wonderful weather. So
so we need to post that on the Facebook page too to let people know about it.
I'll share that on your Facebook page also.
That'd be great.
I'll do that.
All right, wonderful. Well, thank you again, Teri, and have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, and we'll be in touch.
All right, dear. You too.
All right,
Thanks
honey.
so much for calling.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Art of Living Well Radio Network, a subsidiary of Crowning Light Productions. For more information on all of our programs, go to our website, theartoflivingwell.tv. This is Gene Bogart saying thanks for listening to the Art of Living Well Radio Network. Radio to inspire enlightened living.
Attention teachers, students, military, and seniors. At Goodwill, all teachers, students, and active and retired military get 10% off regularly priced merchandise every day. For our seniors age 60 and older, receive 20% off all regular priced merchandise on Wednesdays and 10% off every other day. So when you shop at Goodwill, not only do you get great finds at a discount, you also help someone find a job. Attention teachers, students, military, and seniors. At Goodwill, all teachers, students, and active and retired military get 10% off regularly priced merchandise every day. For our seniors age 60 and older, receive 20% off all regular priced merchandise on Wednesdays and 10% off every other day. So when you shop at Goodwill, not only do you get great finds at a discount, you also help someone find a job.